Vasishta continued, O Ram, I shall now narrate to you how this creeper known as ignorance creeps in all directions. This creeper flourishes in the forest known as world appearance, and it is rooted in the mountain of consciousness. The three worlds are its body, and the entire universe is its skin. Pleasure and pain, being and non-being, wisdom and ignorance are its roots and fruits. When that ignorance entertains the notion of pleasure, pleasure is experienced. When it entertains the notion of pain, pain is experienced. When the notion of being prevails, there is being. When the notion of non-being prevails, there is non-being. We are adrift on an ocean of notions. It's all notions, it's all notional. That ignorance expands by means of ignorance and yields greater ignorance. When it seeks wisdom, it feeds on wisdom and grows into wisdom in the end. This creeper of ignorance is made manifest in its various pastimes and psychological states or modes. Somewhere at some time it falls on or comes into contact with wisdom and is purified, but it gets attached again. It is the source of all emotions and sense experiences. Its sap is the memory of past experiences. Vicara, or inquiry into the nature of the self, is the termite that eats it away. And this is an important thing, this vicara, this inquiry, this self-enquiry, which is the core teaching of the Yoga Vasishta, isn't something which just cuts right through, although in some ways it does, but it's an ongoing process. It's something that has to keep being practiced. The stars and the planets that shine in the firmament are the flowers of this creeper. How does that work then? The stars and planets are the result of ignorance. Again, it's notions of stars, notions of planets. We look up in the sky, we see lights. Rather than just being within that experiencing, we concoct stories about lights. They might be mythological stories, they might be science fiction stories, they might be scientific stories. We'll take our pick and we'll run with whichever one suits us. But ideally it's good to be able to shift between these different modes. It's like the experience of a flower. You can experience it as a poet, an artist, a gardener, a horticulturist, a scientist, an ecologist. There's so many different modes of experiencing a flower. One isn't truer than another. There are different modes, and each mode has different fruits, different benefits. So we choose the one which suits our purposes, but we realise that it's simply a mode, and even the whole notion of a flower is simply that, it's a notion. It's a certain part of the field of experiencing which we've chosen to isolate and to define and to make static by putting a label on it, by putting a notion on it. This creeper is shaken by the mind. It is resorted to by the birds of notions. The deadly snakes of the senses encircle it. The python of prohibited action dwells in it. It is illumined by the light of the heaven. It is filled with the livelihood of living beings. It contains other things too, all those things that delude the foolish, all those things that promote wisdom, and an infinite variety of living beings. In it are they who are born, who are about to be born, who are dead, and who are about to die. It is sometimes partially severed. It is elsewhere completely uncut in the case of the totally immature persons. But it is impossible to destroy it altogether. Now there's a statement, it's impossible to destroy this creeper of ignorance. We're often led to believe otherwise, but it's always there wanting to sprout up and drag us back, no matter how liberated we are. So liberation, as I've said before, is a practice, an ongoing practice. The past, present and future are in it. It is a deadly creeper which makes one senseless, but it dies when it is resolutely examined. Well, certainly its pulling power dies, but no matter how often it dies, it can still creep up again. So a creeper is a good word for it. Just when we think we've cracked it, that realization will pass, and we soon sink into the creeper of ignorance again. Sometimes we dress that creeper of ignorance up in the language of spirituality. That's when we've got to be extra vigilant, extra questioning, and extra doubtful. This creeper itself is manifest as all these: the stars and the planets, the living beings, the plants, the elements, heaven and earth, the gods, as well as the worms and vermin. Whatever there is in this universe is pervaded by this ignorance. When it is transcended, you will attain self-knowledge. So everything in the universe is what we conceive to be in the universe, is what we have concepts about, is what we have notions about. This is described as the creeper of ignorance, which sprouts all these notions and which entangles us within these notions. But through self-inquiry, through turning the attention back on itself, we can transcend all that. And in transcending all that, everything is still going on. But we can no longer talk about it. I tentatively call it the stream of experiencing that is happening, the wealth of stuff that is going on. But as soon as we start talking about it, we get caught up in dualistic concepts, and sometimes we get sucked into these concepts, these notions, these fetishes even.